Well, what a treat this is. I've been fortunate over my 21 years in the booth to have a lot of my favorite Hurricanes, but this guy would be in the starting lineup. I'd have to say we hit it off from hello. Mike, the Robe Commodore, joins
We
me. He's
did.
in Calgary, and Commie, aka the Robe. I'd like to start every episode by asking, specifically, uniquely, how does Mike Commodore define digging in?
Yeah, for me, first off, thanks for having me. Appreciate the compliments. Yeah, digging in for me would be, as it relates to hockey or anything, I guess, really would be, you have a game plan. There's something you want to get done. There's a way you want to do it. And if things go a little sideways, you stick with the program and you work a little harder and dig in, so to speak. And that's what that would mean for me.
Well, you were and you remain a favorite with the Caniacs. They certainly made that clear when you were on the ice with your robe on the 10-year anniversary of the Stanley Cup. So I, on behalf of all of them, I know you're in Calgary right now. Bring us up to speed, what you're doing, where
Sure.
things stand for the great Mike Commodore.
Yeah. Things are, I retired 6 years ago. So it would have been a couple years before the 10-year anniversary. I spent 3 years in a nutshell here. I spent 3 years pretty much full time in Scottsdale, just down there. Just I have some buddies there and I like to play golf. And then about 3 years ago, I was like, well, I'm like, my parents live up here in Alberta. My brother has 3 kids now. They're all young. And I was sitting down there and I'm like, well, part of it's like, I don't want to just disappear in Phoenix and, my parents aren't getting any younger and miss out on a few things. And so that combined with, I'm like, it might be time for me to, I wasn't bored. Being bored once you retire, it's weird going through it, when you're playing and somebody starts talking about retiring, it's like, oh yeah, that's going to be great. What do you mean? That's got to be easy. And in a lot of ways it is. If you're fortunate enough, I'm not complaining, but there are some, it's interesting when you have a lot of free time, not much to do. I'm still single. I have a girlfriend, but no kids or anything. You have to find a way to fill your time. So for me, I thought it was time for me to find something to do, maybe. And I thought, as far as opportunity wise, I'd probably have most of my opportunity in Calgary. So I've been here. I've had a job. Well, until this COVID thing kind of hit, we're kind of off the. I don't know what's going on with that job. The past year here, I've done a little bit of morning radio here in Calgary. So just it's very light, like sports talk radio, 6 to 9 in the morning. Obviously, the focus is hockey and the Flames in particular. But we talk about whatever, if there's a golf tournament, whatever. Like it's very, very light. It's not very serious. It can get a little serious, especially when it comes to the Flames. But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. And I'm sitting in Calgary. I just spent the last 3 months when this quarantine thing hit. I just gotten back from Mexico and I was kind of sitting around here and I kind of self quarantined like before you had to in March and felt fine. And then the simulators all closed at my golf course. Obviously, there was still snow on the ground, so the golf courses weren't open. I'm like, what am I going to do? I got nothing, no gyms, no nothing. So I got in my car. A buddy of mine runs a golf course in Oliver, British Columbia, which is right. It's like 20 minutes from the border, the Washington state border. So I got in my truck. I rented a place in Penticton, British Columbia, and 1 month turned into two turned into three. And I just played. I'm back in Calgary now, but I just played my 99th round of golf on the year. So I'm off to a hot start. COVID's been great for my golf game.
Hey, when you've been in Arizona, two great Hurricanes have had some big time mono rounds over the years. You and Ray Whitney. Can you get inside his head? Can you carve him on the course?
No, I don't even try, to be honest. I don't even, Ray to me, I've never carved Ray. I don't think I've ever carved Ray. I think part of it is because we're from the same hometown, same small town. He's older than I am. Although I didn't see him play much when I was a kid, because I think there's like a 6 or 7 year age gap there. Obviously Ray's the man. He's the man around town. So I don't carve Ray. Now, on top of that, Ray's a great golfer. He's a way better golfer than I am. Like, I'm up in Calgary. We don't get there. I mean, I don't know. We were playing I mean, it had to be at least a couple times a week. Like when he was around, we were playing golf. We're in the same crew there. I can give Ray a run for his money if Ray has an average day and I have a really good day. I can give Ray a run for his money. But I want to say that maybe happened maybe twice, maybe. So I know my role I know where I'm at on Ray's totem pole. I'm there for support. I try and be his partner as much as possible. But he's a great dude. It's fun. I miss playing golf with him. Last time we played golf together, actually, he spends his summers in Idaho. He had me in for a member guest at Gaza Ranch, and there was a bunch of guys there, Gretzky and Hull and all these guys. Ray and I won the championship flight. It was a good time. I haven't been invited back. Maybe I drank too much. That could have been something. I was actually pretty easy because I'm like, well, you know what? I can have all the cocktails I want. All I got to do is chip in. Like Ray might need some help on like maybe 3-4 holes. The rest he's got. So it was good. It was a great time. We had fun.
Boy, this is the sign of great friendship, Robe, because you keep segueing me into different things. Speaking of the cocktails, I want to get you to tell a story. Remember Eric Stahl's wedding? Okay, leave it to Eric. Thunder Bay, only Thunder Bay. The wedding's at like 10 in the morning, and then the reception doesn't start until 6 o'clock at night. So you got all that time to kill, and you had been somewhere. You can tell us where the night before. So you came in hot, and I remember.
Yeah.
So after the reception, everybody's staying at the hotel where the reception's at. The Valhalla is the name of the joint. And one by one, I'm sitting at a table with an agent, Rick Kern, another agent at the time, Paul Krapelka, and your general manager, Jimmy Rutherford. Okay, it's the middle of the summer, so you shouldn't be worried about having cocktails, but in comes Andrew Ladd. In comes Eric Cole. In comes Cam Ward. They're all of age, and they're worried about boozing in front of the general manager. And so they go around the corner with all this time to kill where Jimmy can't see him. Then in comes the robe, Commie. And Jimmy loved you for it. You sat down. There's a huge plate of nachos because Jimmy loves his nachos. And you ordered Coors Lights for everybody at the table and around his Southern Comfort shots. And Jimmy loved you for it. What do you remember about that?
Oh, you know what? I'm glad you brought that. I was thinking about this the other day. Like somehow Thunder Bay came up, and I'm like, I know I was at Eric Stahl's wedding, but I'm like, I don't remember a whole lot of the details. But now that you bring it up, the night before I was with, because I have some buddies that I went to college with that are from Thunder Bay, so I linked up with them, and we got in one, to put it lightly. And then I never really got it. Like I do get it a little bit. Well, no, I don't really. Like, I get it. Like, your general manager's there. You're sitting there. I'm like, this is a wedding. It's supposed to be a good time. It's in the middle of the summer. It's not like this is a January wedding. We got a game the next day. It's like, hey, train hard and have fun when it's time to have fun. And, I just didn't. I get like with Andrew Ladd and these guys, like, okay, like don't get totally shit-faced in front of the general manager and embarrass yourself. Like, I get that. Like, you got to keep it together. Like, but you can have fun. I mean, Jimmy's not an idiot. You can go around the corner and drink. He knows you're drinking. He's not a moron. So it's like, you might as well just sit down, have a good time with him, have a couple beers, keep it together, catch a little buzz. Don't get slammed. But I never really understood that on why, like, I mean, Jimmy's a good dude. Like, I can get it. Maybe there's some general managers that are pricks but Jimmy was fine and he doesn't care. So, I do remember having a good time at that wedding, but I remember it gets a little blurry after. I don't know why I ordered Southern Comfort shots. Like, I don't drink Southern Comfort. There must have been a bottle sitting there or something, or maybe it's a Thunder Bay thing. But I remember that being a good time, a really good time. What was the name of the hotel? Valhalla?
The Valhalla.
Okay.
Because, Robe, I ended up going to all 4 of the weddings, and that's one of the hardest places to get to. And I remember Jordan's wedding, when Jordan got Sidney Crosby and all the Pens are there, and he got dealt halfway through the reception. But the one good,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
And I remember Mark's wedding, and I didn't even know who Matt Zuccarello was at the time. And I'm like, who's this minion? And he was a very likable guy. What I did know is that because the Stalls are people of great faith, And I knew once I went to the fourth wedding, Jared's, I wasn't going to have to come back because there's no chance of divorce in those four. So at least I felt good about myself. I've made my last, at least marital venture to Thunder Bay.
That's good on you. Thunder Bay is, that is in the middle of nowhere. Like we used to go in college. Like I said, I played with a couple guys from Thunder Bay at North Dakota. And I would go there. The 3 years I was in college, they would bring me up for Easter. And it was like from North Dakota, it was like it had to have been an 8 or 10 hour drive through the bush to get there. There's nothing there. It's nice once you get there. But yeah, that's good. Good on you. You're probably, like you said, you're never going to have to go back unless you really want to go back. Then you can, but it is a pain in the ass to get to. Especially from Raleigh.
And by the way, if you fly right to Thunder Bay, in terms of the cost of the plane ticket, Robe,
it's got to be through the roof.
You can fly to Hawaii cheaper. I'm telling you.
I believe that. You go to those small little airports like that, you are getting bent over.
Hey, speaking of tough places to get to, your buddy Rod Brindamore, he lives in one of those tough places, Campbell River. You win the cup, and there's a great picture at his cystic fibrosis golf tournament that you went to with him right after the cup, and there you both are with the cup in a waterfall. I want to know if Rod was secretly flexing and posing. This is a classic timeless picture. What do you remember about that time with your buddy underneath the waterfall with the cup? By the way, you had a body fat percentage probably that was the best of your career at that point. You look great.
That's because I hadn't eaten in like 2 weeks since we won. That whole thing, actually, it's kind of funny how the whole thing went down. So the year we won, that was my first year in Carolina. I'll make it short, but first year in Carolina, I didn't really know anybody. And Rod, obviously respected Rod, but didn't know him. And Rod, he's a quiet, and I get along with Rod. But, when you first meet him, obviously he's intimidating. He's ripped. He's, the captain of the team. And he doesn't talk much, like nothing. So for the first, I can't remember when we had our rookie party. Our rookie party was probably like December, January, somewhere in there. So I don't know if I had a conversation with him. Like, hi, like he's not rude or anything, but I don't think I'd ever talk to him. The only time he'd ever like looked at me that I remember would be, when I was playing and he was open in the middle and I didn't see him and I shot it off the glass. And then I looked to the middle and he'd just be staring at me, just pissed off. I'm like, oh, damn it. Rod was open. I missed that one. But anyway, so we get to the rookie party. I think we had a rookie party might have been LA. And I had heard before the rookie party that Rod has this golf tournament in Campbell River. And he's had it for like 15 years or something. And the only person that he had ever invited was like Harold Schneps. And he like never invite anybody. And he didn't invite anybody because he just figured nobody wanted to come. So I get a couple drinks in me at the rookie party and a few drinks in me at the rookie. I wasn't a rookie, but I might as well have been. And I start hollering at Rod. I'm like, Rod, I heard about your golf tournament. Like, I'm coming. He's like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, you're not invited. I go, just invited myself. I'm coming. He goes, okay, I'm going to remember. I'm like, yeah, I'm in. So then I kind of forget about it. Then we go on. We end up winning the Stanley Cup on June 19th I think it was a Monday too. And, I'm ready to go. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying in North Carolina. I'm the man here right now. I'm not going anywhere. Well, Rod, like 2 days later at the second parade or whatever, he goes, hey, remember the golf tournament? I'm like, yeah. He goes, it's this weekend in Campbell River. I'm like, shit. So I got to get a fly from Raleigh to, where did I go? Raleigh to somewhere. I think it was maybe Salt Lake to Vancouver. Vancouver, I had to stay the night, and then I had to fly from Vancouver the next day out to the island, Vancouver Island. And I finally get there. And you know what? It was a great time. Like, I'd never been to Campbell River. One of a good buddy of mine that I played in the minors with my first 2 years is from there. So he was in town. The cup was there. Rod was like super gracious. Like, he goes, dude, take the cup, because my buddy's parents wanted to see it. And I'm like, Rod, this is your time, man. This is your parade. Like, I'm here because I got drunk at the rookie party and told you I invited myself to your golf tournament. And he's like, no. You got to come. You got to come. So we do the parade. And then that picture, so we're going to, that picture was in Campbell River, like in the actual river in the middle of nowhere. And, I'm like, oh God, I'm like, Rod takes, water, right? So I'm just standing on the shore. I don't want anything to do with this picture, not with Rod. I'm like, there's no chance. I'm not doing, this guy looks like he should be on the front of a muscle magazine. I'm like, I don't. So he goes, come on, get in the picture, get in the picture. I'm like, Jesus, he won't let this go. I got to get in it. So I get in the water and I get behind it. And I'm like, I got to try and look as good as possible. So I like kind of tucked my body in behind the cup and I was flexing like as hard as I could with, I think it was my right arm, if I remember right. Like I am giving it all I got just to try. And it actually turned out when I saw the picture, I'm like, man, I actually look pretty good. That worked out all right. But yeah, the event was awesome. Rod and I sat on one of the par threes and we just hit balls with every group. The parade was cool and, for cystic fibrosis. And then I didn't really know anything about it. And Rod had the get together at the community hall or high school gym or whatever, wherever it was. And I remember I had a blast. I mean, I had quite a few beers. People were super friendly. And I remember giving a speech. I don't know what came over me. I was on stage and I remember giving a speech. I just grabbed the microphone out of somebody's hand. And Rod, I remember looking at Rod before I started talking and he was horrified because I'd probably had 25 drinks throughout the day. And he was like, oh my God. And I actually killed it. I don't know what I said, but it was good. It was to the point. I was like very, just thanking everybody and this and that. I got a standing ovation and that was the end of it. Rod was pumped. I think from that point forward, Rod decided to talk to me. So now we're cool.
You aren't just cool, but let's fast forward. I guess this would be 13 years later because December of last year. So it's still 2019. The Canes playing well, have a game in Calgary Saturday afternoon, and then they're going to Banff. They're going to Banff. So you come to practice the day before. There was going to be unannounced. There was going to be an open seat on the bus because General Manager Donnie Waddell was staying to scout or go back to the offices in Raleigh. The deal that you struck with Rod Friday, if the Canes won the game Saturday, you take it from there.
Yeah, so I showed up unannounced to the Friday practice, and I knew the Canes were practicing at the Dome. I got nothing to do. I'm like, I'm going to go over there and watch practice. What the hell? So I kind of like doing it. I've done it a couple times. Like I've done it with Nashville once when Labby's in town, and I kind of sit up at the top of the lower bowl on one of the ends. And like when Labby was in town, he couldn't tell who I was. So as far as he was concerned, Labby was like pissed because he thought I was like spying on his practice for the Flames. So then anyways, I went down after and he realized it was me and laughed. But so I didn't watch practice, went down, talked to Rod after. And Rod had told me, we BS and he's like, yeah, we're going to Banff after the game tomorrow. It's an afternoon game. I'm like, really? I'm like, just by total coincidence, I had a group of 12 buddies that were going out to Banff that night too, the Saturday night, the same night the Canes are going. But I wasn't sure if I could go because during the game on Saturday, the afternoon game, the Calgary Flames alumni was running a toy drive. So what that means for me is basically I don't wrap any toys. I say, hey, thanks. And I crush beers. That's basically the toy drive. And the girlfriends and wives take care of all the wrapping and everything. So I'm like, well, I don't know how I'm going to get out there. I told that to my buddies. I'm like, look, I'm going to be having beers this game. I can't drive, so I don't know. Anyway, in comes the Hurricanes to the rescue. And Rod's like, well, hey, if we win the game, you can come on the bus. I'm like, all right, that seems like a great deal. So during the toy drive started at noon, the game, and it ran to like, I think the end of the first period. So I'm in my Flames jersey or whatever. I'm not cheering for the Flames. I'm cheering for the Canes. I'm like, let's go. And then I came up and I talked to you guys pregame, right? And we were like, oh, yeah, we're like, hey, win or lose, get on the bus. And I'm like, yeah, I probably could do that. But at the same time, like, I know Rod can be pretty serious and I'm sure he'd give me a pass. But, if the Canes go out and get crushed 8-0, I don't really want to be on that bus. It's going to be like somebody passed away and like there's going to be no beers. So I was cheering hard for the Canes. I think it was 4-0, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was a landslide victory. The Flames were out of it. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Fans would come up and like, oh, yeah, it's really tough how it's going tonight. Yeah, it sucks. I hope they can come back. Meanwhile, in my head, I'm like, bury these guys. I want to get on that bus. So, yeah, it was fun. It was great. After the game, I went straight down. I left my truck right at the Dome and, jumped on the bus and I was ready to rock. And we ended up going out for dinner there a little bit. And I met up with my buddies and, yeah, it was a good time. Worked out perfect. It was awesome.
One of my favorite bus rides in over 2 decades. I mean, it was a hoot because you were, weren't you initially in Rod's seat, or were you in the general manager's seat when you first got on the bus? You were in the front row. I know that.
Yeah, I think I was in Rod's seat, and then I was like, yeah, Rod's seat's my seat. Rod didn't like that. I'm like, I'll move. So then I got the GM seat.
Uh, did you know anything when he was your captain? And it's obvious, he's become one of your great friends, that he'd be a really good coach.
I don't think that, like, I can't say I ever thought about it. When I was playing with him, you think a guy like that's going to play forever, even though he's not. I never thought about that, but now that he is, like, it doesn't surprise me at all. Like, if Rod Brindamore had told me when he retired, I think I'm going to get into coaching, then I'd be like, yeah, you know what, I would. You're going to be pretty good at it if you want to be, if you have interest in it. So yeah, and I don't think. I think if you were talking to him, I don't think he knew exactly what he wanted to do either. And think he knew he wanted to stay in hockey, but I don't know if he knew right away that coaching was for him. But it's turned out great. I know. I mean, I can see why guys. I guess I've never been in the room when he's been a coach, but I can imagine him being straight up with you. I can imagine him being very honest with you, laying it out. I can imagine him respecting you. He's not going to be one of these guys that treat people like trash. So I can see him getting a lot of respect out of his players. I mean, how can you not respect that guy? He's done everything, and he's a great guy, and he's there to help you. So it doesn't surprise me that he's doing great, and I'm happy for him. I mean, it's awesome. It's great to see. I mean, I'm here in Calgary, and I'm part of the Flames alumni. I mean, I could be part of the alumni half the league, but I mean, I cheer for the Flames other than when they're playing the Canes. The Canes are my team, and a big reason why I still cheer for them. Not only my experiences there, but a big reason is also Rod, for sure.
So this question has been on my mind, and you're the perfect guy to ask. You look recently, Rod hasn't won a cup as a coach, but he's going to have some chances with this Hurricanes team. But let's just look at Craig Berube. Joe Quenneville's got 3. Daryl Sutter's got a couple. These players that had significant careers, and hand in hand, Mike, typically they seem to have little or no ego. Sometimes I'm not saying there aren't good coaches in the league, John Cooper, Pete DeBoer, just to name a couple. Peter Laviolette didn't play a ton in the NHL, but had a distinguished career. Why do you think the guys that had very fine playing careers seem to be, at least in my view, better coaches than some of the ones that didn't have much of a career at all?
Yeah, I think it could be different for everyone. I think some of it might be, I think just by and large, if Rod Brindamore walks into your room, I'm a player, and he's coming in to be my head coach, or I get traded to the Carolina Hurricanes, and all of a sudden Rod's my coach. It's like, well, I think just automatically because of his career, it's like, okay, well, this guy knows what he's talking about. He knows how to do it himself. Now it's up to Rod to, Rod needs to figure out. And I think that's a challenge. You can have guys that played a long time and had unbelievable careers try coaching, and sometimes it doesn't work out so well. And I think that can be because it's like, well, yeah, they know how to do it themselves, and they did it themselves, and they did it at a very, very high level for a long time. But it's like, I think there's also a little bit of an art. You have to be able to teach also. You have to be able to translate that to your players. Just because you did it awesome doesn't mean that, the people that you're coaching are just automatically going to be able to do it great too. So I think there's definitely like an art to that. I think a lot of times with coaches too, some of the guys that didn't end up playing, in the NHL or significantly, I think some of them come in with a chip on their shoulders. I think some of it is, well, you know what, I didn't make it as a player. They go into coaching, they put everything into coaching, which is great. But then, some of them can, if and when they make the NHL level, now it's time to like, well, I didn't make it as a player and you guys do. Well, now it's time to get even. And I think there's some of that too. So I'll call that jealousy maybe if you want. But yeah, I think it takes, like you said, with Berube and Rod, and there's been definitely some recent Rick Tocchet. He's done well in Arizona so far. I know it's pretty new, but he was doing great in Pittsburgh before. So I definitely think it breaks down to the individual. Just because you're a great player doesn't mean you can be a great coach. But I think if you can learn how to teach what teach the game. Obviously, you know the game. If you can learn how to teach the game and come across well to your players, and I think treat them with respect. And I think a lot of guys that used to play, nobody likes getting disrespected or getting treated like trash by their boss or coach. I think a lot of guys that played, recognize qualities in their coaches that they like. And I think a lot of them are like, hey, the last thing I want to be is Mike Babcock, be a prick to everybody, treat people like trash. I don't want to be like that. So I'm going to go the other way. And hopefully that's what Rod decided to do, which I think he did.
And just to piggyback on what you're saying, I just think that great players don't necessarily translate to being great coaches, but it seems like just about unanimously, they don't have much of an ego at all.
Yeah. No, I think you know what? I think a lot of that just comes from playing. Like, take, the game of hockey. I mean, it's getting away from it a little bit, but still, the game of hockey is a very physical sport. And I think, at least I'll just speak for myself. I learned at a very young age that, you want to be a prick and you think you're good and you have an ego. Well, how about I punch you right in the face? And I think that kind of, you want to be a prick and you think you're awesome. It's like, oh, okay, well, let's see how you take this. And I think hockey is a game, sports in general, but I think hockey especially is a game that can humble you in a hurry. And I think most guys have gone through that. And you learn. The part of being a pro is learn how to be around other people, and nobody likes being around somebody that has a huge ego. It's no fun. So no, it's good to see. It's good to see these guys doing well for sure.
Nobody wants to be around anybody that has a huge ego, but you always want to be around a great guy that likes to wear bathrobes. Can you the gift pamphlet that the Hurricanes were offering for Christmas? We've gone over this before, but take it from the top about how you eventually ended up with that bathrobe that ended up in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's in the basement somewhere in the Hall of Fame now. Actually, it was pretty clean though when they brought it for me. It stunk a little bit there at the tenure, but So first year in Carolina, I was 25 years old, I guess, probably when I got there, 24, 25. Anyways, single, no kids, nothing. And the Hurricanes for Christmas, we got like in November, beginning of December, the Carolina Hurricanes wanted to, you could pick a gift. So they gave you a little pamphlet. There was probably 7 or 8 things in there. You could pick one, and it was going to be your Christmas gift from the Carolina Hurricanes. So I'm like, oh, okay. I've never seen this before, but it seems like a nice little gesture. So I'm looking through this pamphlet, and it was like a barbecue set. I'm like, yeah, I don't cook. I'm like, I'm at Jesse Bulleris's house. I don't even think he has a barbecue. Nah, I don't need that. The other one was like a wine sifter or whatever, like a wine set. And I'm like, yeah, I'm still not a big, I like wine, but like, I'm not going to use that. It's not like I sit around my house hosting parties and drinking wine. And I'm like, if I'm drinking at home, I was drinking with Jesse and we were crushing beers and vodka. It wasn't wine. So anyways, there was a couple other things I couldn't really use. And then there was a bathrobe. And I'm like, wow. I guess I could use that. I don't own a bathrobe. I'm like, maybe I can wear it around the dressing room or something. It looks pretty comfortable. So I ordered that. So it took till, I want to say about March 1st, something like that. The gift comes in. So it's waiting for me in my stall. So I'm in the little players' change room there. And so I put this bathrobe on. I'm like, oh, this thing's pretty nice. And I'm standing there by myself, and the veteran, Glenn Wesley, walks in. And he's like, oh, that's nice, Mike. And I'm like, yeah, you like it? He goes, yeah, I like that. He's like, you should get your numbers stitched into that. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right. I mean, Glenn's played 8 million games in the NHL. I'm like, hey, if he thinks it's a good idea, that's good enough for me. So I go to Bob, one of our equipment guys, and Bobby, I'm like, hey, can you put a little 22 on here somewhere? He goes, yeah, no problem. So put it on, and then he stitches it on, and then everybody's in the room, and Wes is like, come on, walk out in the room. I'm like, all right. So I walk out there, and everybody kind of has a laugh. And then so before games, I'd probably do, most of my, I would warm up for sure, but I wasn't doing this my warm up usually was a lot of coffee. So I'm like, this bathrobe's perfect. I'm like, I wander around, I have a coffee with people. And then, about 30 minutes before we're going to go on the ice for warm up, then I take it off. I warm up, get ready, throw my gear on and go. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I started wearing it before games. And then, I was doing an interview with you, Tripp, and on TV, and then it kind of took off from there. And then, as my 2 trips to the finals, one thing I know is it's the same players, right? So as, the playoffs takes a long time. It's a couple months, and people are looking for something to talk about. And, you're trying to find something because, the players aren't changing. It's the same people all the time. So yeah, it kind of took on a life of its own. And I remember one of the last regular season games, might have been the last one of the year. It was before the playoffs started for sure. Because of, our interview on TV and stuff like that, people were kind of liking it or whatever. And then I remember coming out, I think it was the last regular season game. I came out for warmups, and there was a couple of people in bathrobes in the corner with a wig on, red wig on. And I remember dying laughing. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't want to look too far ahead because we got our work cut out and every round is hard. But I'm like, we can put a run together here. This bathrobe hair combo might be a fun thing to deal with. And that's how it turned out.
I don't know if I ever told you this, but after we did the interview on television in the regular season, we were on the road in Washington. Day of the game, I'm riding the bike, basement gym with Jason Carmanis, was the assistant GM.
Yep.
Mind you, he was my college teammate at Harvard. I was the best man at his wedding. And I turned to him as we're riding the bike because I knew about the whiteouts in Winnipeg. And I look at him, I go, Carmo, I'm telling you, this robe that Commie's wearing, you want to start ordering this because, this team goes deep in the playoffs. People are going to go nuts. And he looks at me again, mind you, I was the best man in his wedding. And he gives me this scowl. He goes, you just want a piece of it, don't you? I'm like, no, I'm just trying to, create a buzz for the team. So then I think he actually took that and actually ordered them.
Well, that's good. Yeah. You think there's always ulterior motive. They should have had those things rolling right away once we started going, for sure. It was go ahead.
No, you go.
No, I was just going to say, it was a fun thing. Like it was, when in the 2 years prior, or 2 years before in 2004, I went to the finals with the Flames, but my role in the team was limited. I played a lot in the first round, then it was a little less round by round until I didn't play the last couple games. But the Afro was kind of a big deal around here, and people enjoyed it. And then to go to Carolina, and then to just there was no plan. People have asked me oh, you had this all planned out? I'm like, no, I didn't have a plan. I'm like, I ordered a Christmas gift. I'm like, people just kind of happened to like it, and we got hot, and people got a laugh out of it. I know they were putting those life-size cardboard cutouts on the concourse. Because I did a photo shoot I felt like such a donkey, because it was kind of like the, smile, like you're attractive, sort of like you're the man a little bit, and they're taking pictures and putting a life-size, so I'm in my Crocs robe with an Afro. And I'm like, oh my God, my buddies would have a heyday with me on this. But yeah, it was fun. It was all good fun. And it ended up raising some money for charity for the Jimmy V Foundation at the end. And we ended up winning. So I'd say it worked out all around.
I would say it worked out just about perfectly. And you mentioned your time with the Flames. Mm-hmm. You went to 7 games in Tampa. First, on a humorous front, because you did have that, massive Afro at the time. And Tampa's humid in December. What was it like going to the building during the finals in June with that mug?
Yeah, it was gross. It's probably a good thing I was only playing about 45 seconds a night. I remember being in Tampa, and we went there in 7. I didn't play games 5, 6, and 7. We had a couple guys come back from injury, so I was out. But still, I'd played games 1 and 2 there, and I couldn't even leave. I didn't have a whole lot of experience in Florida. And the beard, and I have thick hair, the Afro, it's long. I sweat quite a bit anyways. I didn't even leave the hotel. It was disgusting. If I went out for a walk, I was full sweat, humid, hot. I'm like, this sucks. And the games, like I said, I only played 45 seconds. So I was sitting there sweating anyways, but it was probably a good thing. I probably would have passed out. But yeah, it was definitely, it was sticky. Tampa was really, how skate around to get the air moving a little bit because the glass was fogging up. It was pretty disgusting in there, but it was a good series.
And now we fast forward. Unique, you lose a year because of a work stoppage where you played still in the Calgary organization in Lowell that was split with Carolina. Eric Stahl was on your team, Cam Ward. Then game 6. Okay, so one Alberta team you've gone to the 7th game of the Stanley Cup Finals with. Now it's game 6, and the Hurricanes, we stay after the game. And I don't know if you came to my room. I think I went up to your room. Remember when I came up to your room? I
You
came to
came
your
to
room.
mine, yeah.
Yeah. And we, because the Edmonton's going crazy.
Crazy.
It was a powerful conversation because, you had become a close friend of mine. You've been to the finals before. Now you've had a 3-1 lead evaporate. The Caniac Nation, I'm sure, would love to hear what you were thinking that night because we weren't going to be able to sleep as you were going to your second consecutive Stanley Cup Finals, Game 7.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was, we had the 3-1 lead, and then things were looking great. We had that power play in overtime in Game 5. I'm not on the power play, and rightfully so. I'm not on the power play. I remember sitting on the bench. I'm like, our power play was. If there was one thing the Carolina Hurricanes could do that year, the Carolina Hurricanes could score goals, and a lot of guys could score goals. So our power play was sick, and I'm like, sitting on the bench. I'm like, man, this could be it. Place is going bonkers. I'm like, PP in overtime. I'm like, there's a 30% chance this thing is done right here and now. And then, I still don't know what Stiller was thinking, and it doesn't matter. But anyways, tease it up for old Fernando Pisani from the ladies' tees, who puts it under the bar. Now we're going back to Edmonton. And I knew, like, kind of going back to Edmonton, I was like, we're going to have to, this is not going to be easy. Like, these guys are going to, I mean, none of it's easy, but I'm like, this is going to be very, very difficult because these guys are going to be ready to go. And they had a very physical team. They were a more physical team than we were. I'm like, we're going to have to be ready to go here. And that game was, I think, what was the final score, 4-0? I think it was 4-1, maybe. It was a total beatdown. Within the first 10 minutes, I remember sitting on the bench, and I'm like, if something doesn't change here significantly, like right now, we are going 7. Because, like, anytime, it wasn't dirty. Well, I guess by today's standards, it would have been. But, like, anytime we touched the puck, we were getting run over, like all of us. And so, they steamroll us in Game 6. And, yeah, I remember just kind of sitting in the room. I'm like, man, another Game 7. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, the only thing I was really thinking is I knew, Rod was going to have us. Rod didn't ever have to say anything. We all knew. I knew the guys were all going to be ready to go. I think it's just more trying not to be nervous, and you just want to try and, hey, look, sure, yes, the season is going to be over tonight. It is Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Whenever you, as a kid, dream about winning the Stanley Cup, you never really dream about winning it in Game 4. I mean, it's always Game 7. So it was a huge opportunity. I just thought for us, it's like, we have to come out and play and just prepare like we always do and be ready to go. And what happens, happens. I like our chances. I think we have a better team. Yes, sure, they're hot. They've had a great playoff run, but I think overall we have a better team. And it worked out. I mean, I'll never forget that Game 7. Like, I've never been a part of anything like that. That was one thing, because I got both sides of it, because my parents lived in Edmonton. So, and I'm from right outside of Edmonton. So, my buddies were, I think when they were talking to me, they're like, yeah, we're cheering for you. But I think only, other than a couple of them, I think they were all cheering for the Oilers. But, they were always like, oh, this is the loudest building. This is the loudest building, this and that. And I'd have my parents to the games at Edmonton. But I gave them a talking to, like, before Game 1. I'm like, hey, look, I'm like, don't even think. I go, I want you to be at the game. I go, don't even think for a second of wearing one piece of Carolina Hurricanes paraphernalia. I know who you're cheering for. Anybody knows you knows who you're cheering for. I do not need to be sitting there with you in a Canes jersey in Edmonton, Alberta, with all these blue collar, these guys are hammered. I go, I don't need the stress. I go, just show up to the game and have fun. And they did that. There was one little episode, but a couple of my buddies from high school and actually with Cam Ward's parents too. And a couple of my buddies from high school stepped right in, and that was the end of it. But anyways, one thing that kind of not bothered me, but, everybody in Edmonton's like, and in Canada's like, oh, it's the loudest rink ever. It's the loudest rink, Edmonton, Rexall, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it's loud in here. Don't get me wrong. But I've never been in a building that was as loud as the building in Carolina, especially for basically the whole playoffs, but especially that Game 7. I mean, literally nobody sat down the whole game. Like, nobody. Maybe some people in the upper deck, but the whole lower bowl was standing. It was either the entire game or from when Wardo scored, what, a minute and a half in, 2 minutes? From that point forward, like, the place was rocking. I've never been a part of anything like that, and I'll never forget it.
And Well, what a pairing on the blue line. The righty that you are, the lefty Brett Hedican. One of the great pairings in Hurricanes history. Why was it such a good pairing on and off the ice? The guy affectionately I call Roy Hobbs the natural.
Yeah. You know what? I owe Brett a lot, and I've told him this. Like I've told this right to his face. And so my year there in Carolina, like I'd always, my first, other than the lockout year, other than I guess in the year before there with Babcock, but I'd always played a little bit in the NHL, but I was a very up and down guy, like I, half and half or whatever, and I was just having a hard time, like I think people knew I could play, but it's like, okay, well, if I'm in and out of the lineup and I'm playing 7-8 minutes, it's like, okay, yeah, maybe I can fight a little bit, hit the odd guy, but you're not. It was hard for me to establish myself, and that even happened that year in Carolina. Like I was playing quite a bit at the beginning, but that was an Olympic year, and then I had a bad Charlie horse, and it was the only time that I was actually pissed off at Labby. Is I had a bad Charlie horse before the Olympics. I got hit by Darcy Hordachuk, and I had to leave the game. Like my leg was, if I would have been back in, I could have got seriously injured. So I get this thing drained, and then like I think Aaron Ward and Caberlet might have been hurt. Anyways, we didn't have D. So he's like, hey, I need you to dress to try and play. So I suck it up, and like I can't even walk. And so I put my gear on and I play like I don't even know if I've really played. But anyways, I go to bat for Labby, and then the Olympic break comes, and I'm like, okay, hopefully I can stay in the lineup and keep this going. Then come back from the Olympics, everybody's healthy now, and I'm a scratch. And that was the only time that I was pissed at Labby. I was like, you know what? I'm like, I shouldn't be on the ice. The only thing that's going to happen is me hurt myself. I come out here for you, and then my reward after the Olympic break is I'm scratched. Anyways, I was pissed, and I didn't know this until after the season. Brett never said anything to me, but Oleg Tverdovsky was playing in my place, and I didn't know. But Brett told me after during the off season, he's like, "Hey, I went in, and he was playing with Oleg, and he went in and he talked to Labby, and he said, hey, he goes, look, I want to play with Commodore. Pair me up with Commodore. I want to play the rest of the year with him." And so that was how I got back in the lineup. My first game back in the lineup with like playing significantly, like with Brett as my partner. I scored a goal. I think it was the game-winning goal against the Rangers at home. I remember that goal because I remember when it went in, Willie gave me a nice pass and I put it in. I remember being like, that's big for me right now because hey, look, I'm not a liability out in the ice. I can score a goal every once in a while. Like I'm here to help. And then it was off to the races. So on the ice, why we work so well, I think we both like to communicate. Our styles were good. I was one of the worst skaters on the team. I'm one of the worst skaters in the league. I could skate backwards pretty good, but I wasn't fat. Like forward, I was terrible. I'd look bad doing it. Brett was, if not the best skater in the league, one of them. As far as people that I played with skating wise, as for defensemen, it's Scott Niedermayer and Brett Hedican are the best skaters that I've ever seen. And I guess Nick Lidstrom, you could throw it in there too. But so it was perfect. Like I knew that, if the puck goes down, Brett's going to get it. I don't have to worry about that. All I need to do is I need to make sure that I'm always an option for Brett. If he wants to skate it up, go ahead. If he wants to go somewhere else with it, go ahead. But Brett knew that I was always going to be there to support him. I was always going to be around trying to get myself open. And it worked well that way for sure.
I never knew that. Brett had done that. And
yeah,
I know you were sour at Labby, but
just a little bit. Like I got over it, but I was sour.
But Mike, Commie, what in terms of bringing out the best in a player and or the team? Mm-hmm. What did Peter Laviolette bring that, for instance, a Mike Babcock doesn't?
I found my experiences with Labby. I didn't know him at all before that year. Well, I guess my first time meeting Peter was, and you touched on it earlier, which it ended up being probably the most important decision of my career was during the 04-05 lockout to go play in Lowell. That's why I ended up in Carolina. I had a really good year in Lowell. Carolina, Jimmy and Peter and Jason, but they were always there watching. It was easier for them to get to in Calgary's defense, but they were always there watching. I had a really good year, which ended up me being traded to Carolina, and the rest is history. But, I thought Labby was a good guy. Like when he came down, he wasn't coaching us at Lowell, but he was down there and he would just come watch and he'd BS every once in a while. I'm like, this guy seems like a good guy. For me, I thought he was a very approachable guy. He was always good to me. Like he never, no, he would give it to me. Like if he didn't think I was playing, which I never ever had a problem with, but nothing. Like I like coaches that were hard on me. I like coaches that would, as long as they were respectful about it, I had no problem with a coach hollering at me and saying whatever he wanted. That was cool. But Labby, I wouldn't say was a huge yeller, but I think he knew for me, he goes, if it wasn't working out, it wasn't because of if I wasn't playing well, it usually wasn't because of my lack of effort. It just wasn't my nights or whatever. But he was, he was good to me. And I think and this isn't coming from what I had heard after I was done in Carolina. So my experiences with Labby were all awesome. And sure, we won the first year. He played me a lot. I mean, he was a huge reason why my career went where it did. And, before that, I'd heard that he was a little bit different. He was a little bit harder to deal with. And I never saw any of that. I thought Labby was awesome. So I think Labby, when he got to Carolina also, I think if you asked him, I think he had some growing to do too, and to figure out how to deal with, dealing with, established NHL veterans is different than dealing with a young guy in the American Hockey League. That's a completely different thing. And so I think he had some growing to do, and he did great. And, he's not working right now, but he'll have a job basically whenever he wants it. And I love Labby. He's a great dude.
Anything you can tell us after you earned every bit of it that would fall into the category of just good, clean fun that you did with the Stanley Cup, whether it be when you had it yourself or at any of the other locations during that 2006 summer? Give me a good one, will you?
Yeah. I tried to go, so I'm sure somebody's broke the record now, but I tried to that summer. You know what? If I could do it all over again, I would have went to Europe with it too. But I had to draw the line somewhere. I'm like, man, I do have to train here. Like my career isn't over. So I tried to go. If I was invited and the party was in North America, I was going. I'm like, I'm going. I don't care where it is. I'm going. So I ended up going to, I don't know what the final tally was, like 12 or 13 parties. And, for the most, I just hung around the background, had a few drinks, had a good time. Like it was no craziness. It was always families and big groups of people. I would say probably, the weekend where, because Ray and I are from the same hometown and Cam Ward's from 20 minutes south of where we're from. I would say that weekend was like the second or third week in August. We had a good time. Ray and I, actually, we went, so we combined our days. So it's like, well, why don't let's do it back to back, but then we get more time with it. We can do it. I'm like, Ray, I go, you're the man, whatever you need, you do. I'm like, I just need it for one night. I'm like, I'll come with you to other things. Like, it doesn't matter. He goes, okay, that sounds great. He goes, let's go get it from Doug. So this was actually pretty fun. So Doug's in St. Louis. It's his night with the Cup. It's Ray's day, Ray's official day.
I was there with you.
Yeah.
Including Joe Buck's house.
Yeah, Joe Buck's house is unreal. I don't think I really understood how much money those guys make until I'm like, whoa, I'm like, this house is amazing. Remember all the athletic, the sports memorabilia and stuff? I remember wandering around downstairs hammered. I'm like, wow, this guy's got all kinds of stuff from everywhere. It was a sick place. But yeah, Ray and I decided he's like, hey, he goes, if we don't go get the Stanley Cup, goes, it's not going to get here because they're going to fly commercial. St. Louis, you're connecting to get to Edmonton. And he goes, it's not going to get here till the afternoon. I'm like, well, what do you want to do? He goes, let's rent a plane. I go, yeah, you mean you're renting a plane? I go, sounds good to me. I didn't have, Ray had made millions of dollars. I was just kind of getting going. And he laughed. He's like, yeah, I got it. Don't worry. Let's go. So Ray and I jump on the plane, fly to St. Louis, go to Doug's party. I don't even know why we got a hotel room. We got a hotel room. We gave Doug till I think it was 6 a.m, I believe. It was 5 or 6 a.m. And we're like, okay, Doug, you know what? Thanks for having us. We've had a blast. Your time's up. We're out of here. So Ray and I grabbed it, ran back to the hotel room. Like I said, we didn't even touch the bed. I don't even know why we got a hotel. Jumped on the plane, flew back. And then we had a great time. Like Ray kind of had his family day, which was a blast. I took part in a little bit of that. A big kind of shaker up at a old rink outside of town would be the easiest way to put it. And then the next day we flew out again. Ray was involved in a golf course out on Vancouver Island, not far from Campbell River. So we went out there. I partaked. Ray was nice enough to have it, and my parents came too. Ray's like, "Hey, bring your parents." Like, so I mean, like I said, I got nothing but glowing things to say about Ray. He was great to my parents and everything. And then it was my turn. And then, yeah, my turn was like, by this point, I'd already been to like 10 parties. So when it was like my official day, I'd rented a bus, like a party bus, and it was at my parents' place just outside of Edmonton in Sherwood Park. And they were like, I was wondering, like, what should I do? Should I do a pub crawl in Edmonton? Should I go down to Calgary? I want to involve my high school buddies. They're especially the guys that were coming to the game. They're important. So I'm like, you know what? I don't want to go in Edmonton. I feel like, I don't really have much to do with the city of Edmonton anymore. We just beat the Oilers. I'm like, everybody's going to be having drinks. I'm like, chances are, we're going to run into somebody. Somebody's going to say something a little offside. I'm like, I just want to avoid that whole thing. Let's go to Calgary. I get treated well in Calgary. They hate the Oilers down there. They were cheering for the Hurricanes. We're all set down there. So we got on the party bus, and I knew by this time that as soon as people keep it under control, by and large, until the first drink goes into the Stanley Cup. Once that happens, it's game on. Like, there's no controlling anybody anymore. You just got to go with it. So I was visiting my grandma. It ended up being the last time I ever saw her. She was in a home in Red Deer, Alberta. So we were bussing down, and we stopped off. And I'm like, hey, these guys are like chomping at the bit. I go, no. I go, look, I'm not showing. My grandma doesn't have a lot of time left. I'm not showing up in there with booze on my breath. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I go, you guys aren't drinking either. I go, if you want to have a couple beers, by all means. Nobody's drinking anything out of that cup until after this is done. And they were great. They're like, okay, no problem. So I go in, see my grandma, bring the cup in, get back in. And I barely put that thing down. And the guys are just dumping vodka in. I'm like, oh God, here we go. So we went and we did a long story. I'm rambling too long, but ended up doing a pub crawl. We hit like 5-6 spots. We started at this restaurant, Joey's, that a buddy of mine was the GM of. And the party like started with like 12 of us. Like, it was just people on the bus. That's it. And by the time we got to Joey's, there was just my buddy knew it was coming, and that's it. So he had a bunch of people working there because he knew we were going to be drinking. By the time we left Joey's, we left there with about 50 people. We stopped off. It was a Sunday night. We stopped off at this bar on 17th Ave, the Red Mile here that I used to go to every once in a while. We stopped in there. There was like 2 people in the bar when we showed up. We got there at like, I don't know, 4:00 in the afternoon. By about 5, the place was slammed. And I don't know how many pitchers it was insane. Like 200 pitchers minimum, at least. Like, there was booze everywhere. And then we went out at night. My only mistake was that I'd rented a whole floor of hotel rooms at the International Hotel, and they didn't even end up charging me for it, which was really nice of them. I messed up because Cam Ward, so this was Sunday night. So I was planning on everybody was going to stay at the hotel Sunday night. And then Monday, we were going to go give the cup to Wardo, bust it back up. Well, Cam wanted to eat cereal out of the thing, out of the cup at 9 a.m. So we had to get on the bus. We slept on the bus. I screwed up because Cam's day was Monday, and then I had another day with it, and I took it to North Dakota. So I screwed up. I should have said, hey, Cam, I'm going to keep it Monday. You're going to get it Tuesday. And we could have done it a little bit better. But I was hoping to win one more, and maybe, then I would have the program down tight, but it never ended up happening. So one and done.
No, not necessarily one and done, because if your brother from another mother, Rod, wins one as a coach,
that's true.
You're going to have all those privileges. I know you want to go hit balls to try to improve on that 1.8 index. Yeah, 1.8. You got to get that down to a 1 or a scratch, Robe. But I have 2 questions for you before you go.
Sure. Yeah.
It's been proven that with your, I'll tell you, with your quip, I'm saying that correctly, that you have the ability to, say, carve a coach if he's in your crosshairs, and you do it with thunder.
Right.
I'm going to bet you no on this question. Tell me if I'm wrong. I'm betting that you actually were not a big carver or talker on the ice. Were you, or were you not?
No, not at all. No.
You owe me dinner.
Wasn't like, yeah, no. Yeah, I owe you dinner. I wasn't. No, like, I don't, I found it when I was on the ice, I found it better for me. I enjoyed knowing, first off, I wasn't that like quick. I mean, it's one thing to send it, send a tweet or whatever. You sit there and you can, you take as long as you want to compose it and get it right. I don't think I'm real quick as far as carving other guys on the ice. And I always enjoyed it more where I kind of enjoyed the other guy not knowing what I was thinking. So like, I'm like, you know what? Yeah. Okay. If I run my mouth to this guy is going to know what I'm thinking, this and that. I was better off staying out of that. And then having the other guy think, I don't know what, I'm not sure what he's thinking. Like, is he pissed off? Is he going to two-hand me? I'm not sure. I like that more from where I was playing. And plus it took all my concentration to play the game, to get around the ice, because I wasn't a very good skater. So that took up most of my my brainwave activity. But yeah, I do some stuff on Twitter. I've actually taken kind of a break. I mean, my disdain for Mike Babcock is very public. I mean, I think the guy's a total scumbag. But to be totally honest, 99% of my coaches I love. There was a couple that I didn't. Mike Babcock, Scott Arniel, and Claude Noel was an idiot. Other than those guys, I like the rest of them. The rest of them were all great. Yeah, they were not. Daryl Sutter was hard on me. I don't know how many times he called me a but I didn't mind that. Like everybody, on Twitter, people are like, oh yeah, you're a pylon, and oh, you couldn't take the heat. It's like, no, it's not about that at all. It's like, go hang out, go spend an hour with Mike Babcock and come back to me and let me know what you think of him. Because unless you have a camera rolling, or unless you can do something for you, you can do something for him. He's going to treat you like you are floating in the toilet. That's kind of took on a life of its own. I backed off a little bit because it started to get, once Babcock got fired and I was on the radio, it was actually perfect. I was on the radio the next morning. So it was actually in a calm, collected way where I couldn't swear because it's on AM radio. I was able to explain like, okay, this is what happened to me. And I think people enjoyed hearing a calm version of it. But then it started to get like, the Bill Peters thing here, which, hey, and I was right in the middle of it here too. I was on the radio for that. So now we're talking about racism. And I'm like, oh my God. And then, Peters' name got drugged. And it started to get a little out of control. And I'm like, I don't want to be, the Bill Peters thing is unacceptable, 100%. The Mike Babcock, I think he's a scumbag. But then it started to get more and more like, well, Peter was something like, what somebody was accusing him of punching him, which didn't end up happening. And I'm like, I don't want to get sucked into this. This isn't 99% of the coaches I really liked and I respected. So I've kind of pumped the brakes on that. Mission accomplished as far as I'm concerned for me. And here we are.
Well, I will always think of you 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100 times as a friend who is floating in the clouds, not floating in the toilet.
Thank you.
There is one coach, and this is my last question. Great guy.
Sure.
Rick Bowness in Dallas, that has a love affair for Corvettes. And my final question to you is, because you're typically a pickup truck kind of guy, what made you drive a Corvette as a cane?
So I was living at Jesse Boulerice's house. Jesse got traded halfway through the year. We were out in Cary. I'm actually, to anybody that's listening and lived in the area, I still think about this to this day. I mean, it wasn't my house. Jesse and I were both young. We didn't have any wives, girlfriends, or kids or anything. I'm embarrassed on the state of our lawn. I still forget about that. It was embarrassing. Anyways, that's a whole other side story. Jesse got traded. So I'm staying there and not by myself. And I'm like, the season was going on. Now we're getting in. It was right around the end of the regular season. I think we had a week or so to go. I am bored stiff. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do today? So I get in my Yukon Denali, which I needed because I never knew where I was going to be year to year, and I had to bring my stuff. I'm like, you know what? It's Sunday. I thought they were going to be closed. I'm like, well, which is stupid. But I'm like, why don't I saw like the Hendricks car area there in Raleigh. I'm like, I'm going to go just wander around, look at cars. So I go pull in. I'm just walking around. And, I never driven a Corvette, never even been in a Corvette before. Never had a sports car, nothing. Pickup trucks and SUVs is all I had. And I'm kind of walking around and, I'm looking at the Corvettes outside, and one of the sales guys comes, oh, you like that Corvette? I go, yeah, nice. He goes, yeah, let's take it for a spin. I'm like, oh, no. I'm like, hey, I know where this goes. I have an idea where this is. Go, no, that's okay. I'm just looking. I got flip flops on. It's stick and just trying to making up excuses. He goes, oh, okay. So I wander around for another 20 minutes. Come back into the Corvette section. Kind of like, that's nice. The guy walks out, just throws me the keys. Goes, hey, let's go. Let's take it for a spin. I'm like, oh okay. So get in. 30 minutes later, my Denali's gone. And I'm driving off. I bought the Corvette. I'm driving off the property in the Corvette. I remember driving out and I'm like, how am I getting all my stuff home? This thing, I could put like a golf bag and like maybe one small little suitcase. So I bought a Corvette, traded in my Denali. It's my only car is a Corvette. And so I had that Corvette the whole time. Guys are like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I thought it was cool. The guy's a good salesman. Like, what am I going to do? So I ended up keeping that Corvette, it worked out great. We won with that thing. And then I was in Columbus a few years later and I had another thing. I actually bought a truck in Carolina too, right before I got traded out of there. I wanted a diesel truck because I'm like, I can't just have this Corvette as my only vehicle. Like I got to have something that I don't have to, my ass doesn't have to touch the ground to get in. And I remember I got this, all I wanted was just a Ford truck. That's it. I wanted a tonneau cover on it. Maybe tint the windows. That's it. I took it and this guy's a great dude. I forget what his name is, but he's out kind of towards Durham. Heard he's good at doing this kind of stuff. And I should have known as soon as I got in there, but pull in, he's like, oh man, nice truck. You want your seats done? I go, seats done? What are you talking about? He goes, oh, put your name in the seats or something. I'm like, no. I think you got just the tonneau cover. Just the tonneau cover, some tint, and just slightly bigger tires. That's it. He goes, yeah, I got you. So he finishes it up in like a week or something. He goes, your truck's ready. I'm like, okay, I'll come get it. He goes, no. He goes, well, can I bring it to the rink? You guys got a game tonight. No, I kind of like the guys to see it. I'm like, sure, if you want to. So I remember Willie gave me a ride to the rink that day, and we pull into the back there, and there is a monster truck waiting there for me. I'm like, oh my God. Willie's like, what did you do to that thing? I'm like, oh my God. He goes, you look like an idiot. Because it was so big. So anyways, I had both those vehicles in Columbus my first year there. I couldn't really drive the Corvette very often. The truck wouldn't fit in the garage because it was too big. And so after a year there, the next year, I'm like, okay, so I got rid of the Corvette. I sold it to my buddy at home. He still has it. Got rid of the truck, and I got an Escalade hybrid that I still have now. But yeah, so the deal is with the Corvette, I told my buddy, I said, I'm going to give you a smoking deal on this thing. I sold it to him for 20 grand Canadian. That thing had like 25,000 miles on it. I'm like, but if you ever sell that thing, you're selling it to me. You're not selling it to anybody else. I'm not giving this to you so you can sell it and make money. It comes back to me. So there's an outside chance I might buy that thing back pretty soon.
Hopefully it ages like a fine wine.
Yeah, hopefully.
I want to tell you, because I know you want to get out and I could talk to you all day and all night, but I know you got to go home that 60-degree wedge in your short game.
Yeah,
Commie, the robe, there are many reasons I love the greatest game on earth, hockey, but at the top of Everest, no question and absolutely, is it has allowed me to meet people who have translated and turned into lifelong friends that otherwise I probably never would have met. And you,
sure,
hands down, are one of those guys. I love you. I can't thank you enough for digging in. Hopefully, as our podcast gains its sea legs, you'll come back and dig in again.
Anytime. Thanks, Tripper. I feel the same way about you. I love you too. You don't get to see you guys. That's the one thing with, it's a great thing about technology. You can always send a text. You can always, phone calls 2 seconds away. But, the one thing that, I don't get back to Carolina enough, and I don't get to see the guys, that I played with and everybody that was involved in the organization on every level. I don't get to see them enough. And that's the one thing that I'm out here and, I think about once in a while is I'm like, and don't get me wrong. I love it up here in Calgary and it's been great and everything's good. But, it would be nice. I would like to get back to Carolina more and see the people that I care about. And you're obviously included in that. So thank you very much for having me on. Best of luck with the podcast. And of course, if you ever need me again, I'm a phone call away. I got nothing but time these days.
And just to piggyback on what you just said, for a young, promising Hurricanes team that got back in the playoffs and went to the conference finals, you coming on that bus ride last December to Banff, think about all those players. Justin Willie was in temporary hiatus at that point, so he wasn't on the bus.
Yeah.
All those players, think about it. All those players are looking up to the front of the bus, knowing the focus and determination of their coach. But after a hard-earned shutout victory, 5 of 6 points on that road trip at that point, they see you and Rod, everybody having a couple on the way to Banff. I think that even though you don't get back to Carolina based on the distance as much as you'd like, think for those players, they're looking up and they're saying, this is how you win. Look at the care and compassion of those two guys, a Stanley Cup winning captain and one of his defensemen. So the quantity may not be there, seeing you as much as we'd like, a great hurricane, but that was a moment I'll never forget. And hopefully Canes will have a break in the schedule, win in Calgary again. You'll be right back at the front of the bus.
Oh, I'll be right back on that bus so fast. No, I had a great time. It was fun. It was fun being there on the bus with you guys. It was fun dinner. Stoller there told me to pack my you-know-what on the way out there. He's the only guy that I played with him at the World Championships, and that's it. So, it was a great time. It was an awesome weekend for me. I'm like, this couldn't have worked out better. I got to get down to Carolina again, and best of luck against the Rangers, right? If all goes well.
Yep.
Give it to those guys and go from there.
Thanks, Rob. Just make sure that you go nice fluid tempo there on the range today. I've seen what you do off the tee. I mean, you absolutely pounded. Just work those nice hands.
Oh, yeah. Nice and smooth. I've been taking, I'll tell you what, that's one thing. Since I've been back here in Calgary, I have taken lessons. I'm the leader in the clubhouse at the simulator at Earl Grey. Of course, I'm at by a landslide. I'm in there like relentlessly in the winter. So it's actually, I'm starting to see it's paying off a little bit, and I got to get down. I got tons of reasons to go down to Carolina, and another one of them would be to go down there and play some golf, because the golf there is incredible. I've played some of it. I've played some of the big ones, but there's tons more there that I know I'd love to play and need to play. So I got to get down.
Hey, it's starting to pay off for you, the simulator and all the work. You know why? Because you're digging in. You're digging in.
Digging in.
So get out on that range and go dig in, Robe.
Hit the inside of the golf ball, no over the top.
Yeah, don't need that.
No.
All right, go dig in. Thanks for doing this. Love you.
All right, thanks, Tripper.
Just want to remind everybody, if you give me one quick second, that we encourage you to rate and review the podcast, share with your friends, and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at DigInTrip. Thanks so much to the great Mike Commie, the Robe Commodore.